Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the Docs Lodge. I'm excited to be kicking off this fall season with a brand new video after an unusually long absence. We've been reopened about a month and a half as a church, and so between everything that goes into that and family and all that stuff, there's just been a lot on my plate. But I'm back now and ready to do some more content for you guys. So for today's video, it's going to be a little bit different than what I've done before. This is going to be on producing your own backing tracks for the worship songs that you use. Now, I understand that there are a lot of opinions and sentiments about this, but that's for another video. But if you're interested in producing your own tracks, then this video is for you. Now, I love using services like multitracks.com, Loop Community, stuff like that. But sometimes that stuff can get pretty pricey. And if you're working at a small church or maybe you're volunteering and you really can't afford to be buying multi-tracks for every single song, this is a skill that would be in your best interest to have. Or maybe what's on those sites just isn't suiting what you want out of the song. Maybe what you want is not available. So in any case, this is a great skill to have, and hopefully this video can get you started. So this is going to be a two-part video. For this one here, we're going to talk about how to get started, and we're going to take a look at a session that I recently did in producing some tracks and show you how I went about that. And then we'll talk about some more stuff in the next video, which we'll get to at that time. Alright, so the first thing that you need to get started is a DAW, a digital audio workstation. And this is recording software essentially. And there's tons of stuff out there that you can choose from. You got Pro Tools, you got Cubase, Reaper, FL Studio, lots of different stuff. For playback, I like to use Ableton Live. I'll use that to play the tracks out to the house while I'm playing with the band. But for recording, I like to use Mixcraft Pro Studio 9. It's worked really well for me. I've been using Mixcraft a few versions back and have been using it up to now. And it just works well for me. Something else might work well for you, but most DAWs can pull off the tricks that I'm going to show you in these couple of videos. You'll also need an audio interface. This is something that you can use to hook up your instrument, your microphone, and it acts as your overall sound engine for your computer. And so this will pair up with your DAW and get you ready for recording. So if you got all that kind of stuff, then you are good to go. Let's go ahead and take a look at this session here. So the first one I've got here is a project that I did for This Is Amazing Grace. The first thing you want to do is to make sure that your project tempo matches what's in the song. So if you find that This Is Amazing Grace is in 98 BPM, then you want to get that set here on your project tempo. And then when you do that, actually first, you want to drag it along the timeline. So you can see all these grids. The further you zoom in, the grids get more fine. So generally you can find a clear starting point by looking at the waveform. So we can expand that. We can zoom in. And you can see here how I have dragged this onto this line right there. That's right on the beat. And it looks like everything is matching up on the beat, as you can see there in the waveform. You want to double check though. So what you can do is set a metronome on. So here let's set a metronome for playback. And then just browse through the song and make sure that every part of the song matches up with the tempo. So let's check it here. I would be set free with them All right, everything looks good there, so no issues there. Let's turn that metronome off. All right, so now that we've got our project tempo set, we've checked and made sure that it lines up perfectly, then we're ready to start putting down some tracks. So the first thing that I want to show you is this synth bass part that I did. And there's a part here in the original song. It's a synth bass that's kind of pulsating throughout the second verse. And I like the way it sounded, and it adds some good depth to the low end. And so I'll play you that here. So you hear that? Da, 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 da. So I wanted to do something similar here with my own tracks. So what I did was I went over here. I have my synth bass track here. I went and I used this plugin called Tau 62. And this is an emulation of one of those Juno synthesizers from the early 80s. This is a really good plugin, and it's free. It sounds really great, and you can get a lot of mileage out of here for not just bass parts, but other type of synth parts too. And so I took a preset on here and tweaked it to approximate the sound on the original track. And I think I came pretty close. Let's hear it here.
Who brings our chaos back into order? Who makes the orphan?
Now let's solo it. Okay, now let's compare it with the original track. Now it's not exactly 100% the same. There's a little bit of high-end fizziness that's on the Phil Wickham version. But in the context of a mix, I think you'd be hard-pressed to tell the difference. And I think I did a pretty good job in coming close to the sound. And it'll function the same way. It's not meant to be this big, outstanding part, but just something to kind of create some texture and kind of help that low end add a little bit more of kind of a high-end crispiness to it. All right, so that's that. Oh, and let me show you how I came up with it. So I did a MIDI track here. So it's not an audio track, but a MIDI track. So I'll double click here, and this is what I did. This shows you the piano roll where I input all the notes. And each little thing here is a 16th note. And you can see where it fits on the grid there. So these are all G's that are repeating, da, 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 C's, and so on. And so I inputted all the notes here to create what you heard. Really easy to do. Any dog can do this kind of stuff. All right, and then there's one other part that I wanted to add here, and that's that opening swell that you'll hear in the song. So let's listen to it here from the original track. So I wanted to take that and I wanted to approximate that. So I used this plugin over here, and this is Synth 1. And I took this kind of stringy sounding thing, this preset that they'd already had there, and I tried to make something that sounded kind of like that. By the way, if you haven't used Synth 1 before, it's my secret weapon in the studio. You can get all sorts of great sounds out of it. I know it looks like pixelated puke, but it sounds great and it's really intuitive. And so this is what I did. I did the same thing as I did on the synth bass as a MIDI track. This is just one long note value. And I added this big reverb you can see here on a send track. And I use this over here. This is a Valhalla Supermassive. Just this really kind of lush ambient type. It's a delay and a reverb. You can set it to be either or. And you can get this one for free too. Synth 1 is free. So yeah, pretty much everything I'm using here, they're free plugins. This one's great. They have other stuff that you can buy to pay for, but this is one that they give you for free, and it's just a great reverb and delay. So then I got that, and then I mixed it down to an audio track. So we mute that, and then I mixed it to audio, so this is how it came out. And then I was able to take that and reverse it. So to kind of get that whooshing sound that you hear at the beginning. So let's go ahead and do this. Let's take out the original lead in and let's hear what this sounds like. So yeah, I don't think that sounded bad at all. It sounds a lot like the original version. And I also added this part up here just to give it a little bit more depth at the beginning. Some things sound good in the studio, but sometimes you just need a little bit more live. And so this is what all this sounds like together. So yeah, that's that. So that's pretty much all I did, and then I was able to mix these down. You can either mix it all down as one track if you got everything mixed the way that you want it to. But I mixed it down to separate tracks so that in Ableton you can have individual control over each sound. And then you really don't need this anymore, the original track, so I had that muted and just had all these other ones mixed to separate tracks. All right, well, I hope that helped you out. Be sure to check out part 2, which I'll put in the video description below, and we'll talk about more on creating your own backing tracks. For now, be sure to hit subscribe and give a thumbs up, and we'll see you back for that video, if not the next one. Lord bless.